As early as 1000 CE, evidence has been found to suggest that people in China, Turkey, and parts of Africa have been attempting to inoculate themselves against the smallpox disease. Throughout history, there has been subsequent outbreaks with various diseases, and with each outbreak, attempts were made to inoculate the population. Some attempts were successful while others were not. And it is through these efforts that we have safe and effective vaccines which are used today to prevent diseases that were once considered deadly. The CDC recommends that all healthy children be vaccinated against 14 diseases by the age of 2. The current vaccination rate in the United States is 76%, which is slightly below the CDC recommendation of 80 to 90% for herd immunity. What herd immunity is the population is less susceptible to disease because they have such high vaccination rates. There's been a lot of debates about vaccinations, and one of the biggest debates is whether vaccinations cause autism or not. A lot of that was started in the late 1990s when a study was published in The Lancet by a gastroenterologist from Great Britain by the name of Andrew Wakefield. The conclusion of the study claimed that all 12 children in the study developed autism as a result of the MMR vaccination. In response to this study, there was numerous attempts to replicate the findings and a major debate. By the time this was all said and done, it was found that this doctor had monetary gain and that his results were biased based on this gain. So his study was ultimately retracted and his medical license was revoked for unethical behavior. Also, out of the 22 studies that were conducted in response to his study, not one single study found any type of connection between the MMR vaccination and autism. Even though the autism vaccination theory has been debunked on numerous occasions, there's still parents that don't want to believe that no link exists, or they state that there's other reasons why they choose not to vaccinate their children. One of the biggest things that I've been hearing a lot lately is natural immunity. Natural immunity is very dangerous. I do not recommend it, and the reason why I do not recommend it is because the diseases that we're vaccinating against have complications that can lead to disfigurement, death. Like for instance, chickenpox. If you let your child get chickenpox naturally, they can develop pneumonia, they can develop staph infection and lesions that are caused by chickenpox, and if the infection on the skin is bad enough, they can develop a flesh-eating bacteria on their skin. They can walk away from mumps completely deaf. They can walk away from polio with paralysis. And if they contract Hib, they can develop bacterial meningitis, which results in irreversible brain damage. These are all very serious consequences of natural immunity. Please do not consider it for 1 minute. It's not safe. The only way you're going to protect your child from childhood diseases would be through vaccination. And then I have questions about, are they effective? Do they work? Before vaccinations were available, nearly every American caught measles, and hundreds of people died every year as a result. In 1921, before a vaccination was available for diphtheria, there was an outbreak that killed 15,000 people. Since the vaccine has been made available, the cases have dwindled, and we haven't had one case reported since 2004. As far as rubella goes, there was a 1964-1965 outbreak which infected 12.5 million Americans. It caused 2,000 deaths in infants, and it caused 11,000 women to have miscarriages. Since the vaccine has been made available, the cases have dwindled considerably, and in 2009, 2012, there was only like 9 cases that were reported. which is quite an improvement from when the diseases were running rampant and maiming and killing people. Another big issue is safety. A lot of these vaccinations are put through placebo-controlled trials, and if they find anything wrong, they pull them immediately. Like for instance, there was a vaccination for rotavirus by the name of RotaShield. It was found that in 1 in 10,000 children, RotaShield caused a bowel blockage. They pulled that vaccine immediately because that's too many children. One too many. They have found instances of high mercury levels, questionable aluminum levels, and issues with contamination, which were all dealt with immediately. And even when they found no contamination in the vaccinations, they still destroyed them as a precautionary measure. I think a major point in this debate would be that these diseases may be eradicated locally, but that does not mean they're eradicated globally. And I think what's going on here is parents no longer fear these diseases, so now they're starting to take a look at the vaccines, and they're starting to wonder if they're necessary just because the disease is no longer there. These vaccines are very necessary. A lot of death is going to result if we don't get the vaccinations. All it's going to take is for one person to come over here from a third world country that's disease-ridden, and we're going to have a major epidemic. Because we're going to have children that aren't vaccinated because their immune systems are not strong enough to handle it, because either they have HIV, they had cancer, they had an organ transplant, and there's also the small percentage that were not quite old enough to get vaccinated for that particular disease. Vaccination is the best thing that you can do for your child. As a mother to 7 children, I have had each and every one of my children vaccinated, and I don't regret it for 1 minute. I'm glad that I did it because it gave me a peace of mind. I don't have to worry about my children catching a disease and dying or being maimed or being disfigured, and I don't have to worry that they're going to pass a disease off to somebody who's vulnerable because they were not vaccinated. So please, if you have children, rethink the decision not to vaccinate, because it's one of the most important decisions that you can make. It's a lot more serious than whether you're going to put your child on an organic food diet, whether or not you're going to put them in a public school or a private school. It's just something that needs to be done at all costs, no matter what.